I've been waiting for this interview for a long time. Matter of fact, I've been waiting to talk to David Lee Morgan Jr. for a long time, and we're going to get that opportunity right now. Let's bring in outstanding author, teacher, sports reporter, he does it all. David Lee Morgan Jr., good to have you, man. 1310 WDPN. How are you this afternoon?
Sam, you know what? It's always great. I haven't talked to you in a while. I see you everywhere. We kind of run into each other. We used to see each other a lot when I was at the Beacon Journal.
Yeah.
But I listen to you all the time. Love the intro. Love being on the show. Love listening to you. So thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, man. I'm gonna tell you what. I was sitting out in the lobby. I was on one of our computer stations, and Rainsburg was sitting at one of the other ones, and I was just doing some last minute dotting of the I's, crossing of the T's.
Yeah.
And I was like, wonder if I can just find a little nugget on David Lee. And I was looking through the stuff in the personal life and the work and all this stuff.
Yeah.
And I go over to the right column. I go, he is how old? Bro, you look 30.
Hey,
you look fantastic. How do you do it?
You know what? I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's, black don't crack. I don't know what it is.
You look fantastic, and I'm not just. I mean, no. I was like, all right, this is nonsense. I'm going to text him right now and say, okay, what year were you born?
No, I appreciate it. I was born in 65, but you know what? A lot of people say that. Now, I have the gray coming in, right? But you talk about the decades where sports was the greatest. In the 90s, I was shaving my head in college, because we all shaved our heads, and then I was like, you know what? Jordan was doing his thing. And I said, you know what, let me try to shave it. So I started shaving it bald. And so from the 90s, I've always shaved it. I think also, Sam, I've just always tried to be, I try not to let things stress me out. And I just try to always have fun. Don't let anything, that's hard to do. Obviously, it's hard to do. But I try to laugh all the time. I watch sitcoms. That's all I watch. Yeah. I grew up on sitcoms. You were talking about what did you want to be when you grew up? I always wanted to be a detective. I always wanted to be like Mannix or Starsky and Hutch or, but then when that didn't work out, I wanted to be Oscar Madison.
Oh my God. Okay. That is a hoot.
I wanted to be Oscar Madison. I watched all of that. Odd Couple, Taxi. You name it. All of those sitcoms. Because growing up, I was home by myself a lot. My siblings were older. So I watched TV. That's all I watched. WUAB, Channel 43, 3 o'clock. You watched all of those shows, from 3 to 5. You watched all of those shows coming home from school. So I guess that's why I'm so, I don't know, youthful, I guess.
Well, you're speaking my language with all that TV talk. I look like I do, and you look like you do. You win. All right. We're just leave it at that. All right. I'll tell you what, and I was mentioning a couple of different times before we brought you on in the 3 o'clock hour and early in the fourth, giving everybody a little background on you and your newspaper work at the Beacon and the Vindy, and doing some stuff. Just the sports events that you have covered, the content that you have put out, the books that you have written, the environments that you have been able to bin around and absorb, it kind of brings all this together, David Lee, and that's why 6 books and just a wealth of knowledge, and it just take us through your little journey here before we get into the book, because it looks like everything was kind of set up for the next thing to happen. Does that sound right for you or no?
Yeah, that sounds right. And actually, it's 17 books I've written. I've written nine sports books, and then I wrote a 8 children's book series called Black Trailblazers in Sports. Okay. But here's the thing. I started out at the youngster, YSU at the Jam Bar, started at the school newspaper, and then I worked at the Warren Tribune as a correspondent. But that's really where things took off for me, because in the 90s, I was still at YSU. I was finishing up at YSU, and Coach Tressel was there, and, we became friends. And so I started covering YSU sports for the Tribune as a correspondent because I was a student there. So then I was able to cover all of those national championships in 91, 92, 93, 94. And then, I got to the Beacon in 95 after being at the Vindicator and Channel 33 as a reporter, a news reporter on TV. Then I went to Binghamton, New York, and then I came back. And so when I stepped into the Beacon Journal, I had a lot of this news experience. So they put me in news right away, but they said that I was going to be going into sports. And I don't know if you remember Milan Zaban.
Oh,
yeah. So Milan was going to retire. So they said, work on sports in Stark County. Do you remember they had Wayne County and Stark County, County Line, and Wayne County? It was called County Line. And so I worked there until Milan left, and then I moved into sports. So from 95 until 2010, that's when I really got things rolling. It was a great experience. I mean, the best experience I could have ever had working at the Beacon with guys like John Seaburn and Terry Pluto and Sheldon Ocker and you name it, Brian Windhurst and Chris Broussard, Chris Thomason. I mean, you name it, Michael Hawley, all of those guys. So, that's when it all started. And I got a chance to do high school. And then I moved into college covering University of Akron Zips and covering the MAC. And then I moved into professional sports. So it was just a wonderful, wonderful, blessed time to be at the Beacon Journal.
No doubt about it. And gosh, I remember Milan interviewed me a couple of times after a couple of baseball games. And I pitched at Canton Central Catholic. And I'm like, oh, Dad, we gotta go get the Beacon tomorrow. So that is so awesome. I tell you what, I'm so happy for all the success you have had, and just the way you carry yourself. You are always smiling. Every time I've ever run into you, you had a big smile on your face, and that just makes everybody feel good.
Thank you, Sam.
Yeah, okay, look, the LeBron Phenomenon, and you've had a front row seat for a lot of what LeBron has done. Mm-hmm. And there's been books. I mean, you wrote the one in 03, The Rise of a Star, A Ring for the King, 2009. You have seen a lot. When I just say two words, LeBron James, first thought, sentence, or phrase that comes into your mind?
The first thought or sentence I would say is, never imagine the greatness.
Okay.
Never imagine the greatness. I knew he would be great, but not at the level where we're talking he could be, in some circles, the greatest of all time, the greatest to ever play NBA basketball. I mean, you think about that. That's incredible. Sam, you were there. You were there around a lot of this too, because we would be at press row. We would be at the Jar. We would talk after games. We would talk at the Cavs facility out in Independence. So, I mean, we talked about this. You saw it. We knew he was going to be great. I mean, I knew he was going to be great just talking to guys like Keith Dambrot and talking to so many other people. We knew he was going to be great. But realizing that the whole basketball world would be on Maple Street, would be in Northeast Ohio, would be in Akron. It wasn't in New Jersey. It wasn't in the Bronx. It wasn't in Brooklyn. It wasn't in Texas. It wasn't in LA. It was in Akron, Ohio.
Yes.
Akron, Ohio. That's what's so amazing to me is the basketball world was right here in Akron. And so that's kind of really, when everything started with him on the cover of Sports Illustrated that junior year, that's when I realized this was surreal. I had to start chronicling this because I kind of knew when I saw live trucks outside of the St. V on Maple Street with those big antennas lined up all around that brick road. I was like, this is something that'll probably we'll never see again.
David Lee Morgan Jr. is our guest. The book is called LeBron Phenomenon, My Front Row Seat to History. I love the title because the word phenomenon, that's what this was when it was taking off, and it went all the way to the roof. I thought, oh my God, this kid is going to be unbelievable. There's no way I would have told you, David Lee, that this was going to happen, that was going to happen. Right. He would he looks like he could still play another 3 or 4 years. He's 42 years old. He's got rings. He's got generational wealth. He's done tremendous things with the Akron in his school and just everything that he has done. And to sit down and chronicle everything, whether it's stuff that we know, little things that we maybe didn't know.
Yeah,
I guess this book, like, I imagine you could have kept going with everything that's there, but the way that you compacted it, and I say that in quotes, compacted it, because it is a tremendous read. I think you I was going to say hit a home run. I think you got a slam dunk on this one.
Yeah, got a slam dunk, a 3-pointer from long range. But yeah, you nailed it, because the phenomenon was that this had never happened. You think about what was happening at that time, really. I mean, the internet it was just taking off. So, you really couldn't just go on and get things. You could, but it wasn't like so instantaneous like it is now. I mean, it was in the infancy to a certain degree. I mean, cell phones, really, if you had a flip phone, you were considered elite, because most of the phones were just those ones where you pull up an antenna. You really couldn't take any pictures. Right. So newspapers were still the thing. You couldn't just, you had to wait for the newspaper to come out to read stories. So it was a phenomenon, because you had a kid who was handling all of this stuff. He was on ESPN left and right. He was saying all the right things. He was beating all the right teams. They were traveling all over the country and just dismantling the Oak Hills and the Mater Days. I mean, and the Strawberry Mansions. Yep. They were doing this. And the great thing about it, and the amazing thing about it, was these teams that they were playing were these national elite teams. And then you had this team that was from West Akron. I mean, they were just guys from the neighborhood who played AAU basketball together. And so for you to tell me that Drew Joyce, who was 5'2" or whatever, would go against some of these guys from Oak Hill and score 20 points and dish out 10 assists, I mean, it was just a phenomenon. As a group, it was a phenomenon, because LeBron made these guys feel like they were just as good as him. And in reality, maybe they weren't. But they thought they were, and they played like they were, and that's why they won. I mean, think about it. They were freshmen, 27-0, 15 years old, and they were 27-0. So that tells you the phenomenon that was LeBron, and the phenomenon that was that St. V team that went for 4 years, because they were just incredible together. Together, they were just amazing, and I had to chronicle what was going on as I watched it for those 4 years.
Yeah, and that's second chapter, the Fab Five, and I think about LeBron and Shion and Willie and Corey and Drew and Maverick, and I think about just how that 4 years, and they should have had 4 state titles, but whatever, they missed.
Yeah.
I remember, and of course, I worked up at the Akron radio station AKR for 5 years, from 14 to 19, and they would tell me stories up there about the year that they told the Cleveland Cavaliers, we're not going to carry your games this year. We're going to travel with LeBron with St. Vincent St. Mary. And that's exactly what they did. They went to UCLA, Pauley Pavilion. They went all over the country to do St. Vincent St. Mary basketball. And people say, oh, that's crazy. No, that was the real deal. And it was probably the smartest move they could have made.
Yeah, that's a great story. That's in the book, because an interesting story about that is that senior year, I was the Cavs beat writer, because Chris Thomason, he had left. He was covering the Cavs for the Beacon. He left and went out to cover the Denver Nuggets.
Right.
So he went out to Colorado somewhere. I forget what paper, maybe the Colorado Springs Gazette or something. I can't remember. So I remember I went in the office, and, they were kind of asking who wanted to cover the Cavs. I said, I'll cover the Cavs. They said, do you think you can handle this? And we had this discussion. And then finally they said, okay, you'll be the Cavs beat writer. And so I remember, I did the preview that's when they had Smush Parker. He was the guard. And I thought Smush Parker was going to be the greatest point guard in the NBA.
Smush Parker, I remember.
Smush Parker. Yeah. Yep. But I remember what happened was, after about maybe the first 10 games or so, if you remember this, that was the year that they were 17-65. That's the year they got the first pick. I remember they told me, they said, hey, listen, just cover the Cavs at home. Just cover the home games. But go travel with St. V.
Go travel with St. V.
Go cover all of the games Lebron's senior year. So that's what I did. So I was at Pittsburgh at the Mellon Arena. I went to the Greensboro Coliseum. I went to Dayton. I went to Pauley Pavilion at UCLA. We went to Philadelphia at the Palestra.
Yep.
And that was great, because that's when I met Stephen A. Smith and met, Allen Iverson was there. But yeah, we traveled all over. I mean, you talk about a team that instead of taking a yellow school bus, they were going to Akron Canton Airport and then flying across the country to different games. And so that was part of the phenomenon. And some of those stories, you know, like when we were out in UCLA, I write about this story. We're at Lowry's Steakhouse. And if you know Lowry's is where they would always have the Rose Bowl luncheons for the two teams that were playing in the Rose Bowl. So we're there, and they have all the teams there, and I feel somebody behind me, like right behind me while I'm taking notes. And I do a double take, like who's behind me? And I look, and it's Steve Urkel. It's the little white. He's standing right where this butterfly is, like, right here. And so we're talking, and after the press conference, I go over to him. I said, hey, nice to meet you. Like, why are you here? He said, well, I play in a lot of celebrity basketball games. I love basketball. I always come to this event. And he said, I heard about this LeBron James, so I kind of wanted to come and check him out. And he said, hey, by the way, you know any books that are, any good basketball books that you could recommend? I said, I'm actually writing one about LeBron right now. And he said, here's my number. He said, when the book is out, give me a call. I want to get this book. Well, by the time I got back, because that weekend was the national championship with Ohio State, the Browns and the Steelers were in the next day. It was the Browns-Steelers playoff game. So by the time I got home, I lost his number. Was never able to get a hold of him.
Oh, man. Did the Cavs, did they have like a 26 or 27 game losing streak that year?
Yeah, it was a long streak. I can't remember how many. It was a long streak because, I was home for a lot of those games. But then when they're on the road, I was covering St. V, so we didn't really cover them. I think we used the AP. So I really didn't follow them as much as I would have if I was, the actual, road and away beat reporter. But It was kind of interesting because when I would come to Gund Arena, you would hear rumblings, people in the press, in that little back press room, or even on press row, I could hear people say, oh, LeBron must be, they must be off tonight, things like that. And I know guys were joking around because we all knew each other. It was all in fun. But it was, they knew what was on the wall, and they said, hey, since you're there and since St. V is the team in Northeast Ohio, so to speak, we want you to stay with them. So that was a fun experience.
David Lee Morgan is our guest. The book is called The LeBron Phenomenon. David Lee, has this hit the shelves yet? And if so, or if when it does, how can everybody get a hold of this outstanding book?
Yeah, well, the book is out. I don't know if it's in bookstores already at Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, but you can go to Amazon.com. You could go to my website, davidleemorganjr.com, and just click on books and products. Or you could go to Tucker DS Press. Tucker DS Press. That's my publisher who did the book. So you could go to those three websites. But I want to add one thing real quick if I can. Sam, the person who wrote the first article, who covered LeBron's very first game his freshman year, was Brian Windhurst, because he was with us. He was a part-time writer for a while, and then he moved up and became a full-time writer. But he covered LeBron's first game, his freshman game against Cuyahoga Falls. And I remember it's in the book. This story is in the book. Brian came back into the newsroom and he told Frank Corso, our editor, he said, Frank, I don't know. He said, I think I saw the best freshman we've ever seen in Ohio. And Frank said, Jerry Lucas, Nate Thurman, Clark Kellogg. He said, no. He said, Frank, I don't know. He said, but I just saw a kid who I think is going to be the best player we've ever seen around here. His name is LeBron James. And Brian was the first one who covered that. Now, I covered most of LeBron his freshman year. We had Tom Reed and Brian Windhurst who did some, but for the most part, I covered most of their games. But Brian was the first one who covered that first game his freshman year. I'm going through some of the chapters that you touched on, LeBron, UCLA, and Steve Urkel. I want to backtrack here a minute. The night that LeBron played on ESPN2 and Dickie V was there and all the stars were there, and people said, okay, wait a minute, the high school kid now? And this is when, ESPN, ESPN2 were, okay, well, this must be something. What was that
night like at the Convocation Center?
It's so interesting. You name all of those people who were there. I could not tell you what that environment was like, because that's the only game his senior year I didn't cover. And let me tell you why. That's the only game I didn't cover. And here's a good story about that. We were in Detroit for a Knight Ridder newspaper conference. Knight Ridder owned the Miami Herald, the Charlotte Observer, the Philadelphia Inquirer. It was a conglomerate. Knight Ridder owned all of these newspapers. So we had to be at this conference that weekend, those 2 days that they were playing. So I remember I was just like tapping. I'm like, man, we got to watch this game. So the night before, we went to a restaurant and we told the restaurant manager, hey, we want to come back and watch this game. He said, sure, we'll have it on. So the next day we go in, and when we go in, there's just everybody wearing Detroit Red Wing jerseys, and every TV in there has the Red Wings. And we're like, hey, you got to put this game on. He said, why? Why do you want to watch it? He said, well, there's a guy we want to watch. So he puts the game on, LeBron's on, and he goes, oh, that guy? We said, yeah, that's who we wanted to watch. So we watched the game. And at halftime, I had done a pre-recorded interview with ESPN. So it was kind of cool, because at halftime, they show my interview on ESPN, and everybody in that restaurant's looking up. They're looking at the TV, and they're looking at me. They're like, wait, that's you. How are you on the TV? And so that was the only game I didn't cover. But what also was cool was at that same conference was Mitch Albom, because he worked for the Detroit Free Press, and the Free Press was hosting this event because they were a Knight Ridder paper. So Mitch and I talked at one session. I went to one of his sessions, and he said, hey, you're at the Beacon? I said, yeah. He said, I said, I'm actually writing a book. He said, I want to have you on my national show. So I ended up having doing an interview with Mitch maybe a week or two later on his show, on his national show about LeBron. But that was the only game I didn't cover because I was at this conference in Detroit.
Wow, that is crazy. David Lee Morgan Jr. is our guest. The book is called LeBron Phenomenon, My Front Row Seat. Gosh, I wish we had more time. I got to get out of here in like 3 minutes. Doggone it.
I'll make it fast.
Oh, man, I got so many questions I got lined up here. The
rapid fire.
The Hummer thing.
Yeah, the Hummer.
Gloria in the car, and him remotely controlling the game on the floor. Take us behind the curtain there, if you would.
So Gloria, I remember when LeBron got the Hummer, I was in it. One of his friends, Frankie Walker, brought it to my house. He said, you want to ride in it? I was like, yeah. So me and my son, Christian Morgan, we got in it. We rode through it. We went down Merriman Valley, and it was cool. But I remember all of the hubbub, the OHSAA, Claire Mascaro, all of that was coming up. And I remember a friend of the family called me and said, hey, David, Gloria's going to call you, and she's going to tell you where she got the loan and all that stuff. But we don't want it to know who it was from, who called me. So they called me and they said, look, I got it from US Bank in Columbus. And it makes sense because they all knew. I mean, think about it. If you're a business person, I don't know. If you're a business person and LeBron's going to make tens of millions of thousands of dollars, you're going to give him a loan knowing that you're going to make money off of that.
Sure.
So, yeah. So that's how they got the loan, and it was all in order. But it was funny because that night, a few nights after he was ruled eligible, or once that kind of flew by, he brought that Hummer, that little yellow Hummer, and he drove it around the arena at halftime of the JV game, and that was kind of funny. And he ended up signing it for somebody, but that was kind of cool. That was him playing to the crowd, and you kind of knew that was going to blow over because I knew Gloria had done the proper paperwork to make sure that it wouldn't ruin his eligibility.
And I was so mad about that. You unfortunately you missed that game at Convocation Center. I was all set up in line to broadcast St. Vincent St. Mary and McKinley at the Jar.
Oh,
ineligible to play.
Right.
I wanted to cry. I looked forward to it all season long. So it ends up, it's a 2:00 game. Brandon Weems ends up being the hero, saves the day. I'll never forget, LeBron comes out in this beautiful cream colored suit, and he's got like a beeper and a watch. And I thought,
Yeah.
all I did was stare at him. I'm supposed
Yeah.
to do play-by-play of this game.
Yeah.
I'm watching LeBron sit on the bench for an hour and a half.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
the
yeah.
state of my
Yeah,
life.
you remember Deion Sanders was there because CBS this morning was doing a feature on him.
Right.
So Deion Sanders was there interviewing him. Yeah, and Drew Joyce saved the game for him. He had 30 points.
Right.
Yeah, he had 30, and they beat McKinley 63-62. It was a close game. It was a great game. Hey, McKinley played a great game. That was a great game. But it really shows you like that those guys, it's LeBron making them feel like they were All-Americans just like him. And McKinley played that way. It was a great game. It was a great game, great atmosphere.
And David Lee, was that also the game where was Rick Riley from Sports Illustrated there? He was supposed to do a piece on LeBron, and it kind of got shut down.
Yeah, I don't know if he was there. I can't remember if he was there or not. I know he wanted to be there, or there was some hub about them doing another story on LeBron outside of the cover story, which was written by, which was written by Grant Wall, rest in peace. He did that. But yeah, I can't remember. But I just know Drew had a great game. And I remember that everybody thought that was going to be it. They were going to lose their number one ranking. And Drew and the rest of those guys came through. Drew, Brandon Weems played well. That was a great game. It was a fun game to cover. David
Lee Morgan is our guest. I got about 45 seconds. How good of a football player was LeBron James at St. Vincent St. Mary?
Oh, he was easily all-state, first team all-state, easily, in my opinion, could have played in the NFL. Don't know how great of I don't think it would have been at the same level because of the physicality of the game, but football was his first love when he played for the South Rangers. And I remember going to a banquet with him, Terrell Sutton and Antonio Pittman, when those all guys came back and talked to the younger South Rangers. I mean, you could tell that was his love, his first love. I mean, but that tells you a lot about how much of a phenomenal athlete he was. And there you go, that term again, phenomenal. I mean, that's just a once in a generational type of athlete. And he could have done the same things, maybe not on that level, but he could have been an all-pro in football had he played.
The book is called LeBron Phenomenon. David Lee Morgan, before I let you go, how can people get a hold of this book?
You could go to Amazon.com, TuckerDSPress.com, or my website, DavidLeeMorganJr.com, and all the information is there on books and products.
Awesome. I can't wait to take a deeper dive into it. I wish we had more time. I so appreciate you coming on today. It was great to see you, great to talk with you, and let's run into each other soon, okay?
Sounds good. Thanks, Sam, for having me. I appreciate it.
You got it. David Lee Morgan, the author of the book, LeBron Phenomena, His Courtside Seat.